It's been 6 months since I initially reviewed the Salomon Aero Glide. And since then, I've run a bunch of miles and a lot of new shoes have been released. So it's time to update my recommendations and check in on this shoe's durability. Let's talk about the Salomon Aero Glide after 100 miles. Yo, what's going on everybody? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys about the Salomon Aero Glide after 100 miles. But before I get to my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that was sent to me by Salomon for the purpose of review, so I did not have to pay for this pair of shoes. However, they're not paying me to make this video or to use the shoe, and they're not going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Salomon Aero Glide. Now I've already gone over the specs and what the shoe is like in my initial review video. So for this update, what I want to talk about is how I ended up using the shoe over the last 100 miles. And then we'll get into how the shoe's been holding up. And then some other shoes that are out there that you should think about if you like what this shoe has to offer, and some alternatives if you don't love what this shoe is all about. But first, let's talk about how I've been using the shoe. Now, I started out using this shoe as something that I would use kind of on mixed surfaces. And the main reason that I preferred it for some of those softer surfaces, because even though this is one of the softest foams that Salomon has ever made, I do feel like it's still a little bit on the firmer side for my preferences. And what I was really hoping for is that the shoe was going to loosen up just a little bit over time. And that's a little bit of what I got. And so now I don't feel like I have to kind of save it for my soft surfaces day. The last several runs that I've gone on in this shoe have been on the roads, and I found that the shoe is really lightweight and easy on my feet without really being too squishy. So for those of you who don't love how squishy some shoes are getting these days, I still feel like this is going to be a really good option for you, even after it breaks in and you've had it for a little while longer. And at 8.95 ounces, it's a fairly light shoe given how much shoe there is here. So if you want to take it on easy runs, you can certainly do that. But if you had something like strides toward the end of your run, or if you even wanted to do a light workout like a fartlek, I feel like this is a shoe that can certainly handle it. I really wouldn't want to take it for like a full-on workout, but for the bulk of the training that you might be doing over the course of a week, I feel like the Aero Glide can certainly handle that task. Now let's talk about how it's been holding up over the last 100 miles. I think it's been doing fantastic. I've already kind of mentioned how the foam is breaking in really nicely, and I really wish that it kind of softened up a little bit more, but the fact that it hasn't changed all that much probably indicates that there's going to be a lot of longevity, a lot of durability in the foam of this shoe. The upper looks absolutely pristine. The materials are holding up really well. There's no areas in the padding through the heel cup here that are showing signs of early wear. Everything's holding up really nice. The padding on the shoe has always been treating me really well, so it's a comfortable shoe without being too puffy. So I really like the overall fit and comfort of the shoe. But the only place that I'm seeing a decent amount of wear is on the outsole. There are certain higher wear areas that I typically see in my shoes because of the way that my feet hit the ground, and that's the outer part of the heel and right here in along the pads of the foot. That's where I'm seeing more wear here on this shoe too. It's just like a tiny bit more wear than I would kind of expect to see at the 100-mile mark. So that is concerning me a little bit, but Salomon shoes tend to have really high durability. So overall, I feel like if you're expecting somewhat of a more normal amount of longevity from your road shoes, somewhere in the 300 to 400 miles of use, that I feel like this is definitely going to live up to your expectations. So now let's start talking about where this shoe would fit inside a rotation if you really love what the Aero Glide has to offer. Now, originally in my first review video about this shoe, I gave you guys the options of a racing shoe and a trail shoe. And for the racing shoe, I talked about the Endorphin Pro 2 or the Hoka Rocket X2 as being some really great pairing options. But since I made that first video, Salomon has released their own updated racing shoe, the S-Lab Phantasm 2. And I think this is a much better choice. Salomon is now finally using a legit racing foam. There's P-backs in this shoe, and it's a very fun ride and certainly competes with that Endorphin Pro 2 and Rocket X2. And for a trail shoe, I originally recommended it to you to pair with the SenseRide 5, but there is a different shoe that I think is an even closer match, and that is going to be probably one of my favorite Salomon shoes, and that's the Glide Max TR. This is a shoe that also uses energy foam, and in fact, I think that these are sibling shoes, one for the road and one for the trail. It does have a good amount of lugs and grip on the bottom, but it's not the gnarliest of tread patterns that Salomon offers, so they're kind of offering the same energy as well. They're really chill shoes that you can use on most days of the week when you're going out there and enjoying your easy runs. So that's another shoe that I would consider in the pairing, and all three of those together would make a really nice Salomon set. Now let's talk about the pricing for this shoe and where some of the competition sits. So this shoe started out at $160 6 months ago when I first talked about the shoe, and it's still at $160. And at the time that I first reviewed it, I felt like that was a really fair price. Now I feel like the 160 feels a little bit high, not by a lot, because I just feel like I'm not sure it's worth the 160 given all the other competition that exists in the marketplace, at least right now. So originally I recommended the Triumph 20 and the Bondi as some alternatives that offer similar experiences to what the Aero Glide is trying to offer. And I still feel like those are really good competitors. The Triumph 20 right now, if you can find it, is on sale for about $110. And I think that is something that is a really compelling competitor, is gonna make that 160 price for the Aero Glide feel like it's gonna be just a little bit too expensive. The Bondi is still at $165, also still at full price, so that comparison hasn't changed at all. But let me give you two other options of shoes, and I guess I'll call this section of the video like what I'd rather buy. And also these are new shoes that I don't think were on the market at the time when the Aero Glide was first released. And so I'll talk about some of those. And one is a shoe that just came out and hit the market, I think within the last week or two, and that's the New Balance 1080 version 13. It's a very different experience than the Aero Glide, but I think they're both trying to do kind of the same thing, giving you a little bit more stack height, just a little bit more comfort, but still staying in that daily trainer kind of range and having some of that pace versatility that a daily trainer can still have. I feel like what the New Balance 1080 version 13 is doing, they're doing it in a much softer way, a much more dynamic way that I find a lot more exciting and lively than the Aero Glide, which kind of just gives me like, this is a sneaker kind of vibes a lot of ways. I know that is a strength for a lot of people who don't like the super squishy shoes, but I like shoes that are squishy. So this 1080 13, even though it's $165, is a shoe that I think I'd rather spend my money on. And the other shoe that I'll tell you about is the $150 Puma Forever Run. Now this is a shoe that initially I was very lukewarm on, but the more miles that I've been putting into this shoe, the more I've just really been enjoying it. It's not the best looking shoe, but it's another shoe that is trying to give you a little bit more cushion for your daily run, but also still stay in that daily trainer category. This has a lot of other stuff going on that I don't necessarily love, but at the heart of it with the midsole, it's a 2 foam system. I just find it to be really comfortable and gives me just a little bit more squish, a little bit more comfort for those daily runs, but also still can be versatile in terms of paces, just like the Aero Glide is. Now, I'm not saying the Aero Glide is a bad shoe, that nobody should buy it. If you want a shoe that is a little bit on the firmer side, or if you feel like other shoes that are out there these days are just a little bit too squishy and unstable for you, then I feel like the Aero Glide is a fantastic choice. Ultimately, I'm glad that Salomon made this shoe. I'm glad that they're experimenting with taller stack heights and softer foams that they normally do. I think that's going to be really important if they're going to try to continue to make headway into the road market and the American road market in specifically. So I feel like this was the shoe that they needed to make, and I look forward to seeing where the shoe goes in the future. So those are my thoughts on the Salomon Aero Glide after 100 miles. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to talk to you guys in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?